In today's video, we are going to continue our chapter 3 and we are going to cover the topic inhibitor. It is basically the last topic of chapter 3 enzymes. So let's begin that. We will cover the introduction, properties, some types, explanation, and then there is a quiz for you guys in the end. Okay, so first is that inhibitor. So what is an inhibitor? Okay, so basically inhibitor is a chemical substance which can react in place of a substrate, right? It will react in place of a substrate with the enzyme, but it is not transformed into products. No products. Okay, so basically it is a chemical substance which can react in place of substrate with the enzyme, but it is not able to transform into products, and thus it blocks the active site temporarily or permanently. Block active site temporarily or permanently. For instance, um, we can think of like a poison like cyanide, many antibiotics, some of antimetabolites. So these all are the examples, and there are some other drugs who also act as inhibitor, but basically it's that. As you can see in this diagram right here, this one is enzyme, the purple thing, right? And then the orange one here, this is the inhibitor, right? It always come in place of a substrate, right? This is the substrate, but it is not able to transform in any sort of a product. Let's move on. So enzyme inhibitors, as we see that enzyme inhibitor is what बेसिकली अगर आप ये रिएक्शन देखें तो इसमें जो एंजाइम है वो सबस्ट्रेट और इनहिबिटर दोनों के साथ जो है इसका रिएक्शन हो रहा है, लेकिन जो इनहिबिटर है उसने ये एक्टिव साइट जो है यहाँ पर आके अटैच हो गया और जो सबस्ट्रेट है वो अटैच नहीं हुआ, लेकिन कोई भी रिएक्शन नहीं हो रहा, thus no product is formed in this reaction, right? Because it is a chemical substance which can react, but in place of a substrate with the enzyme, it might temporarily or permanently block the active site. It is not able to transform into the product. So this is what a common enzyme reaction looks like. No product and no reaction is being done here. Okay. Then जो enzyme inhibitors होते हैं, they are further divided into two types. First is the irreversible inhibitors, this one, and then there is the reversible inhibitors. जो irreversible inhibitors होते हैं, they check the reaction rate by occupying the active site or destroying the globular structure. By occupying the active site, or simply they destroy the globular structure. They occupy the active site by forming covalent bonds, right? Or they may physically block the active site, right? And then there is the reversible inhibitors. They form weak linkages, very weak linkages with the enzyme. Their effect can be neutralized. Effect can be neutralized completely or partly by an increase in the concentration of the substrate. अगर हम concentration substrate की बढ़ा देंगे तो जो इसका effect है वो ख़त्म हो जाएगा. अब further जो reversible हमारे पास inhibitors हैं, basically जैसे ये covalent bond बनाते हैं, ये non covalent bond बना रहे होते हैं. अब जो reversible inhibitors हैं, they are further divided into the two other types, that is the competitive and non competitive inhibitors, right? Okay, so there are some of the major differences between the reversible and irreversible inhibitors, as you can see here further to for more clarity, right? So if you can see here first, let's see the irreversible inhibitors. The irreversible inhibitors, they reduce the catalytic activity of the enzyme, right? They slow dissociation of enzyme inhibitor complex. They classified into three categories. They are group specific reagents, substrate analogs, and suicide inhibitors, right? They are further categorized into three other categories named as below. And substrate analog, it limit the enzyme substrate and irreversibly modify the active site of the enzyme. Okay, so this is an additional information just to just for your clarity. It has nothing to do with your syllabus, right? And then there is the reversible enzyme inhibitors. They reduce the catalytic activity of the enzyme, as we have just read. It rapid the dissociation of enzyme inhibitor complex, and it is classified into further two categories, that is the competitive and the non-competitive inhibitors. The competitive inhibition can be reversed by increasing the substrate concentration. जैसे जैसे जो substrate की concentration है वो हम increase करेंगे तो जो rate of inhibition है वो decrease हो जाएगा, right? So this is some of the differences between the reversible and the irreversible inhibitors. So let's look at the examples of the irreversible inhibitors, right? Remember that the reversible inhibitors were those who occupy the active site by destroying the globular structure of the enzyme, right? They form the covalent bond. जैसे कि यहाँ पे अगर आप देखें तो एस्पिरिन, it is an inhibitor, right? जो कि मोस्टली जिसकी टारगेट एंजाइम जो है वो ग्लाइको ऑक्सीजिनेज होती है एंड इट हैज़ अ एंटी इन्फ्लेमेटरी इफेक्ट. Another famous one is the penicillin, right? And its target enzyme is transpeptidase. It is antibacterial. The effect that it gives is mostly antibacterial in nature, right? Then there are some other type of inhibitors, the other example, right? But two are enough for you, right? Okay, then the reversible enzyme inhibition. We know that the reversible enzyme inhibition, it can be categorized into the competitive inhibition, non-competitive one, and the uncompetitive inhibition. So the competitive inhibition क्या है कि जो inhibitor है वो active site जो है उसने occupy कर ली है, बट जो नॉन कॉम्पिटिटिव है उसमें सबस्ट्रेट नहीं की है, और जो नॉन कॉम्पिटिटिव इनहिबिटर्स है वो भी एलेस्ट्रिक जो साइट्स हैं वहां पर जा रहा है. अनकम्पिटिटिव में बेसिकली ईएस कॉम्प्लेक्स बना देगा वो. अब जो कॉम्पिटिटिव इनहिबिटर्स होते हैं, जो कॉम्पिटिटिव इनहिबिशन होती है, बिकॉज ऑफ देयर स्ट्रक्चरल सिमिलैरिटी विद द सबस्ट्रेट, they in this stage they highly resemble with the substrate, so they may be selected by the binding site but they are not able to activate the catalytic site, hence no product will be formed here. अब जो नॉन कम्पिटिटिव इनहिबिशन होती है, दे फॉर्म द एंजाइम inhibitor complex at a point, but that point is other than the active site. They alter the structure of the enzyme in such a way that even if a genuine substrate like this combine with the active site, the catalysis will fail to take place. So in your book they have talked about these two, right? The competitive and the non-competitive inhibition. In both no product can be formed. You can say that because of the structural similarity with the substrate, the competitive inhibitors might be selected by the binding site but they are not able to activate the catalytic site. And in the non-competitive inhibitors, they form an enzyme inhibitor complex at a site other than the active site, but they alter the structure of the enzyme in such a way that even if a real substrate is binding over there, no product is going to form over there. Okay, so this is an example of the competitive inhibition. Basically, you can say a mechanism of competitive inhibition. अच्छा, इसमें सबसे पहले अगर आप यहाँ पे देखें तो जो एंजाइम सिक्सेनिक डिहाइड्रोजिनेज है, इसमें जो सबस्ट्रेट है सिक्सेनिक एसिड, ठीक है, वो बाद में जो फ्यूमेरिक एसिड है उसमें कन्वर्ट हो रहा है, ठीक है। फॉर्मेशन ऑफ एंजाइम सबस्ट्रेट कॉम्प्लेक्स, इट इज रिजल्टिंग इन द फॉर्मेशन ऑफ अ प्रोडक्ट, ये प्रोडक्ट में ट्रांसफॉर्म यहाँ पर हो रहा है। लेकिन जो इनहिबिटर है मेलानिक एसिड, दिस वन, it does not fit the active site and hence no product is formed here. No possible reaction here. So this is basically a mechanism of competitive inhibition where the melanic acid, this one is the competitive inhibitor. It is joining here but no reaction is forming here because it is blocking the enzyme reaction. So that's all for today. Now is the quiz time. Okay, so there are dash type of inhibitors. The first MCQ, 4, 3 or 2. We know that there are two type of inhibitors, the reversible and the irreversible one. So here 2 is the correct answer. The reversible inhibitors are further of dash types 4, 3 or 2. They are further of two types, the competitive and the non-competitive inhibitors. So this conclude our today's lesson. If you guys got any queries related to it, ask them below in the comment section and I'll get back to you as soon as possible, and thank you so much for watching.